Hi everyone, this is Adam McCarthy, and this is my internal and external communications chart for the current school district that I work in, which is Mays USD at 266. The requirements for this assignment is we were to identify different internal and external communications members within our district, some of the different roles they had, how they play in terms of two-way communication, and if it was not already identified as to what that member is or what their responsibility is, that was also included as well. The first thing that was required of us was to select a tool to be able to create our kind of infographic with, and I chose Creately, partly because I had used that program before. My account was already set up with them, and that made it easier just because it was an interface that I had been familiar with in the past. There are some things about Creately that I really don't like, and a lot of them have to do with sizing of objects and the way that you can place them onto the infographic itself. Like for example, gonna kind of nitpick some of my own flaws here within my own assignment, but looking at the arrow here, if you're gonna move this arrow, it'll click back to there and it'll click underneath. So to get it perfectly on there is kind of a nightmare with the Creately software. So it was more the formatting of the actual infographic itself than discovering any of the data that made this more of a difficult thing to create and to finalize. But some of the better parts of that is that the template and formatting was already there. It's just the color scheme and adding my own images and obviously my own data to the infographic that made that part easy. Because just scrolling through a list of templates, this one was one that jumped out at me, especially when we're comparing two different groups and their communication styles and the ways they receive communication, the way they distribute communication, if they do any kind of distributing of that communication. The two publics that we're looking at here are internal, which is on the left column, and external, which is on the right column. And the way that I defined these are internal is anyone who is in the district itself, physically in the district. So, our Board of Education, they might not always be on school grounds, but they do meet on school property for their monthly Board of Education meetings, and anytime there's an expulsion hearing or any big news that may be happening in the district, they're there. The superintendent is there daily, same with building principals, teachers, obviously, and support staff, and the students. So these are all internal members. They're people who are physically in the building. They're all stakeholders in one way or another. And then the external are people on the outside who are, not in the schools, or inside of the district, on a daily or every so often basis. Parents, they might be there every once in a while for things like parent-teacher conferences, or if they're having a meeting with a teacher or with a principal, and even things like the PTO. They don't have an office on school property. There's a group of parents who meet every so often, and I believe they do it at someone's house. So it's not a group that meets on school property to have any kind of meetings for that. So that's kind of how I defined my differences between internal and external communication groups. Some definite strengths from the internal side. Being someone in this category right here as a teacher, I feel we have great communication. Anytime there's a big event happening in the district, we are immediately notified. That could be, I work at Mays Middle School, and maybe there was a lockdown that took place because there was a threat from some high school student at Mays South High School. Even being at Mays Middle School, we are almost immediately emailed that, hey, there's a situation going on there. We're here to update you and give you all the facts as soon as we are able to figure them out. And the digital means, as I kind of have discussed here in my middle section, looking at the two groups and how they're interacting together. I really think the digital format is definitely a strength of our district, and the oral aspect is also actually really well done, where we have parents and parent organization members and anyone from the community actually can come to our Board of Education meetings once a month, and there at the end is like an open forum where anyone can ask questions, and that's a great way for any external community member to interact with the top of our internal community team. So, those opportunities do exist, and I've only worked in Mays before, so I'm not sure if that's a thing that's common in other districts, but I think it's something great that we do to be able to encourage that two-way communication between the internal and external groups. Some particular weaknesses, I think we could do a better job. Maybe increasing the frequency of those meetings instead of just, maybe once a month, or maybe when like something really important happens, we find out about. I would honestly like to hear more often, about different things that are going on in the district. We do receive, as teachers and all external community members, do receive kind of like a monthly update from our building principals. So that would be going out to all parents who have a child in whatever building the principal is a part of. They'll get like a monthly newsletter. It's always the first day of the month that that's released, and so parents can kind of keep updated on what's going on in the building. And then the entire district gets a kind of letter from the superintendent, and in that letter it just kind of discusses things that were mentioned during the most recent Board of Education meeting, which again takes place once a month. But getting more direct communication, from not only building principal but also superintendent. And, we never get to hear directly from the Board of Education. So whatever is discussed at Board of Education meetings, that always comes from the superintendent. And this is a group that I would definitely like to hear a lot more from as someone who's part of the internal communications. And even if I'm working with them indirectly, I would be curious to know how an external communication member feels about that, because they're not even proximity, as close to them as I am. So I'd be curious to see what their opinions on that would be, because I bet you, a lot of these external communication members, they probably couldn't even tell you the names of our members of our Board of Education. So, maybe being more public about the way they communicate with us, maybe hearing from them directly, maybe even if it's not in person, maybe orally, like through a video that they could send out digitally to all internal and external communication members. That'd be something that I would really like to see happen, because I feel like that's a weakness of ours right now. And so I think that this is another one, news and media. Occasionally things get released out on Twitter by students, and most of the times I would say that stuff is fact-checked by actual media sources. But maybe there is like a student page or something, and we had an incident one year where someone had made a fake Twitter account from our superintendent, and it was on a day that we were supposed to get a real bad snowstorm, and we ended up not canceling school. But the group of students who I guess had made this fake Twitter account, posing to be our superintendent, had called off school, and so a whole bunch of students had missed school that day because of the media source from a student. So, not a formal media source, obviously, like our local news sources or anything. But just another thing that I've noticed as far as like communication, like I feel like that's something that we should have been made aware of. Hey, this is happening right away. But that's something that we had to find out. A couple weeks later, we weren't immediately notified. So just like timeliness as well with a lot of things. With the, like I said, with the big events, timeliness is really good. But with something like that, that's something I would want to know about. But I don't always immediately hear about it. And just continuing to promote the positive things, especially during the time period that we are in, offering that positive communication instead of always sending out about here's an issue from a parent that's going on, here's something from board or from the State Department that all teachers need to be reminded of. Like I'd like to continue to hear some positives, especially as we are going through these trying times during our communication sources. But again, definitely the digital email format, I would say, is definitely our strong suit as a staff. And so even I believe the written would go along with that, because that is all written information, the newsletters and things like that, and just the short emails. But definitely in today's day and age, man, we do a great job using digital sources, whether that is email or those newsletters like I discussed. But those are things I would like to continue to see improve as time goes on. But at least for right now, we're doing a pretty good job. And as technology continues to improve and to change, I would like to see that continue to progress in the correct direction. But that is going to wrap it up for my internal and external communications chart. I'll post a link to this directly on our Google community page in case you'd like to take a look at this further. If this wasn't enough of an opportunity through 10 minutes to hopefully read through all of this as well as listen to my discussions as those were being given. But thank you guys for watching, and I look forward to seeing all of your videos as well.